Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name's Raymond, and in this video I'll be doing a review of Architectura by Hobby World and Game Brewer. And I'd like to thank Game Brewer for giving me this copy of the game to review. I have the Dutch version. It's available in several languages, and it's a quick card laying game for 2 to 4 players, which plays in about half an hour to 45 minutes maximum with 4 players. So let's quickly open up the box, see what's inside. I'll set up the game and explain the rules, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. So let's have a look at the box. Architectura. It has a nice work of art on the front, and some of the cards that are shown on the back. This is the Dutch version, which I got from Game Brewer. Thanks guys for that, for reviewing purposes. Let's open up the box and see what's inside. Okay, so inside we find a Ziploc bag with Ziploc bags, which is very handy to keep the cards in, because you have to sort them. There's different cards in there, and of course a pack of cards. And then there's the rule book, and that's everything you will find in this small box. So the rules, this is again the Dutch version, so the Dutch rules, and it has the setup, how to play the game, of course, explanation of all the icons on the cards, and that's it. So concise and small booklet of rules. And then, oh, here it is. You can already open it here, I think. Yes. So the cards that come with the game, nice illustrations here. So I think they make a panorama of sorts. Probably. Yeah, they do. So let me see if I can just put that down for you. So that's pretty cool. You got this panorama. That is basically the city. There you go. Pretty nice. And then there's cards in different colors, and 4 different colors. As you can see, there's red, yellow, green, and blue. So there's 4 possible players, and all of them have these different buildings on them. So we got barracks and a tavern and a barn and a market, a shop, a school, stables, a church, park, villa, all kinds of things that you can find in a city. So nicely illustrated. So that's everything you find in the box. Let's set up a game. To set up a game of Architectura, you take these 8 numbered cards and you put them next to each other on the table, leaving enough room for a number of rows equal to the number of players. Then each player picks a color and takes that deck and its 2 tokens, gives that deck a shuffle, and you draw 3 cards. Decide who is the starting player, and then you're ready to play. The game comes with 12 standard cards in each color and a number of special cards which have this flower symbol on them. And in the basic game you only use these cards, and every card has a starting value with the white border over there. It's also the number that's on top when the card is rotated horizontally. And these numbers indicate the value that this card will be worth at the end of the game when you're counting up the scores of all your cards. And during the game, your cards may rotate, so either up or down, and that means the value of that card can be different at the end of the game. If you want to play with the advanced rules, you take all of these cards with that flower symbol, and then players may decide to replace cards in their deck with these cards, but the cards have to have the same value. So this card can replace any card in your deck with a starting value of 4, and this card, for example, replaces any card with a starting value of 9. Some cards, this one for example, specifically says that it replaces, in this case, the villa. So then the number may be different, but this just replaces a fixed card. And then after you've decided which cards to replace which, you shuffle your deck and you start playing. Cards that have this arrow symbol at the bottom with the text indicate that they have an effect on the end scoring. Now during your turn, you're going to be placing cards in the city below these numbered cards, and you always start at the far left side. And according to the number of players, you also have rows. So in a 2-player game, you'll be having 2 rows to play cards in, and in a 3-player game, you'll have 3, and in a 4-player game, you'll have 4. So let's say the first player takes this card and places it here with the starting value up. And this says at the end of the game, you get 1 point for each card in this row. So then the next player can choose to either play a card to the right of this card or starting a new row as close to this row as possible. So you can't place it here, you have to wait something else is played here. So they could place it here, for example, and this one says if you play this card, you may make it protected. Now protected means that it can be targeted by any effect that gets played, and to indicate that, you take one of your color tokens and place it on that card. So then the third player may choose to place this card here, and this card says you may rotate 2 adjacent cards, so that can be here, here, or even on top if it's somewhere else. So all the adjacent cards, and you may choose 2 of those and rotate them, or 1 card anywhere else in the city. So they could rotate for example, this card, and you could rotate it down, so making that less valuable. But they could also say later in the game, well, maybe I want a card somewhere else that's very valuable. Maybe this one was already rotated high and they want to rotate it back to the lowest value, if that wasn't protected, of course. So then player 4 might want to play this card, and this card says you can destroy 1 adjacent card. Now, an adjacent card, again, any card next to this, it's only that one in this case. And then when you destroy a card, you simply flip it over like so. Now this card isn't out of the game, it's not going to be counted, but you have to remember what's there. So the player who owns that card might have an opportunity to flip it back around again, and you want to know what card it is and how valuable it is. So it's important to remember. Now you can also play a card on an empty or destroyed spot. So I can place a card either here now, or here, but I can also play my card here on top of a destroyed card. And you basically just keep taking turns. Every player has their 3 cards in their hand. You play a card and then you draw back up to your hand limit. And every turn you just pick one of those 3 cards and you play it anywhere on a free spot where you can place a card. You read its effect and you apply that effect. And sometimes cards get rotated, sometimes cards get destroyed or even flipped back. And you do that until everybody has played all of their cards. And there are cards that do all kinds of different things. There are cards that give you an extra turn. And there are cards that let you play a card on top of one of your other cards. Cards that let you rotate a card. Cards that let you swap 2 cards in a row. And like I said, cards that let you restore a destroyed card if it's still available. Now in a 3 or 4 player game, there's an extra rule that says that you cannot play 3 of your cards in a row. So let's say if this card had been over here, then I could not play a 3rd green card here. I'd have to play it somewhere else. Except when that happens due to some effect. So this could happen, I just can't place it there from my hand directly. Now here's the trick of this game. So every time you play a card, you check the value of the card next to it. And the color of that card is not important. If there is no card next to it, or one of the cards that was there was closed, as they call it, then nothing happens. But when you play a card next to another one, and the card to the left is worth half or less, then that card gets destroyed. So that means you flip it over. If the card is lower but not half, but over half, but still lower, then you rotate that card 1 value down. If that card, however, is already at its lowest value, like this one over here, you don't rotate down anymore. If the value of the next card is the same, such as in this example, then nothing happens. But if the card to the left of the new card played is higher, then you rotate that card up to the higher value. Unless, again, that card is already at its highest value, then you don't rotate it further. After comparing the values and rotating cards if necessary, then you apply the effect that's printed on the card. Now, a value with an X means that this card is worth the same as the next card next to it. So the left card here is a value is worth 1, so the X here is 1. If it's like this, then that means X plus 1, so now it's worth 2, and here it's worth 3, and if I rotate it all the way to the lowest value, it's worth 0. So in this case, then that would mean this card is now worth 5 points, and here it's 6 points. So if I play this card, then the value is the same and nothing happens. A card with a number symbol on it is worth as much as the column that it is in. So in this case, this card would now be worth 2 points. And again, if you rotate it up, it's that number plus 1, so now it's 3 points. Like I said before, a card that has been destroyed and is covered cannot be restored. But when restoring a card, if that's possible, you flip it around and you put it back down with the regular starting value up. When an ability says that you may do something, then that is not obligatory. Otherwise, you have to do what the card says. And whenever a card is protected by one of your tokens, then that card cannot be targeted by any effects. These effects can make it possible to rotate a card beyond its highest or lowest value. That is not done when you put down a new card and you compare values, then it stops at the lowest or at the highest value. But when a card simply says you can rotate an adjacent card or any card anywhere, then you could in effect rotate a card from its lowest to its highest value. Sometimes an effect tells you to remove a card from the game, and then you simply pick it up and actually remove it from the game, put it back in the box. The special advanced cards are different for each player, for each color, so that puts an extra dimension to the game. There's plenty of them, and you can choose which ones you want to add. And the game ends when none of the players can no longer play a card. If just one of the players has no more cards left, but there are still spots in the city where cards may be played, then the other players may keep playing until all the spots are taken. You count up all of your values, so the values that are on top at that time. You count up all your points, and you also count up any cards that have effects on scoring. And of course, the player with the most points wins the game, and in a tie, the player with the most of their cards in the city wins. And if that is still a tie, then the player of those two tied players who has a card with the lowest value in the city wins the game. And that's basically everything you need to know about how to play Architectura. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Architectura by Hobby World and Game Brewer. Let's start with the presentation. So the component quality is quite good. The cards are of a decent thickness. They have a glossy finish, a really bright printed art on them, and they are pretty easy to read. They have these colored tabs on them to distinguish between the different players' cards. Every player has their own color. And so the component quality is pretty good. The artwork is really nice. I really enjoy all the artwork of all these different buildings and sites that you're building in this beautiful town. And I like the fact that these cards also have this nice artwork on them that kind of forms a panorama. If you put them next to each other, you can even flip them around and have the side without the numbers and then make this big panorama at the top of your game board, which is pretty nice. I really like the artwork. The theme is okay. It doesn't really add much to the game. I guess it could have been any theme, but in this game you're all architects and you're all trying to build the most prestigious buildings and trying to get the points to go up, and others will be placing other buildings next to yours and they might devalue your real estate, and you are trying to get your real estate to get more points. So it works. I think that works, but you know, you're basically just putting cards next to each other and they influence each other. They all have effects and you're rotating or even destroying cards. So that's basically what you're doing. So the theme, while nice, doesn't really add to the game, but yeah, it works for this game. So then the gameplay. So I did like the gameplay. It's very light, and basically what you're doing, you've got a deck of cards and everybody has the same cards, but they're shuffled. And there's 12 cards in there and you're using 8 of those, and you're drawing 3 from your deck, so you never know which ones you're getting and what the other players have. And then you're just trying to decide which of those cards is the most, you know, profitable, the most points to play and where to play it. So basically when other players are taking their turns, you can already try and decide which of your cards you're gonna play. And of course, keep an eye on what the other players are doing. And then you decide, well, okay, I'm going to play this card, and that might, you know, pump up the value of my other cards or decrease the value of the opponent's cards, even destroy some cards. So that's basically what you're trying to do. You're constantly counting the values of your real estate and of the opponents, trying to stay ahead of them and trying to figure out, so which cards do I really want to destroy if I have the card that does that, and which of my cards do I want to protect, because you can also protect your cards with certain abilities by putting a disc on them, and then that card will be protected for the next round, or you know, simply the next card you play can't be targeted. And that's basically what you're doing. So it's really quick and it's really simple, and I think it's a nice filler. And I do like it more with 2 or 3 or 4 players, sorry, because in a 2-player game you're always targeting each other. You already know that if the other player is playing a negative card, then you'll be the target of that. And when you're playing with 3 or 4 players, that might not be the case, because somebody else might be ahead and they'll probably be the target of the next negative effect. And so you could try and play a powerful card without well, hoping not to become the next target. But then of course there's in a 4-player game there's 3 other players, so there's more players that could target you. So they might not always go for the person who's ahead, and if they do, then you might be the next person who's ahead, and then you're the target. So that to me is a lot of fun and kind of, you know, beats the 2-player version of the game. Replayability is okay. The game, you know, each player only has those 12 cards, so after several plays you'll know all the cards and you'll know what they do, which is good because then you can decide quicker what cards to play, and you also will know what the other players have in their hands or in their deck, and by looking at what's played on the table you also know what they still have. So you might anticipate which cards are still going to be played possibly. But of course that does mean that also after several plays you'll know this game inside and out. So the replayability is there if you really enjoy the game and, you know, if you use it as a quick fun little filler. But I don't think this is a game you'll keep playing over and over and over and over again. I would suggest, you know, just keep this as a filler. Try a couple of rounds, play a couple of games, and that's fun, and then put it away again. Replayability is as long as you enjoy playing this game. The game is, however, language dependent. I have the Dutch edition of the game. It is available in several languages, but because of all the abilities that the cards have, the text on the cards, it is a language dependent game. So in the end, I'm gonna give this a small thumbs up. It's an okay game. I found it to be more fun with 3 or 4 players than with 2 players, and you're probably gonna play 2, maybe 3 rounds, and then you're done with it, and you put it away, and you can pull it out again if you ever want to do a quick little filler again. It does have really nice and colorful artwork, and it plays simple and quick. You teach it in 5 minutes and it's over very quick as well. The box suggests it's a 30 to 45 minute game at max. You're probably done faster, especially if you're only playing a 2-player game. So that was it. That was Architectura by Game Brewer and Hobby World. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon to get a notification whenever I upload a new video. Please also consider becoming a Patreon saint to my channel by clicking the Patreon link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.